Have you ever noticed that the most dangerous person isn't the loudest voice in the room, but the quiet one who has finally reached their breaking point? All your life, you've been praised for your patience, admired for your ability to understand and forgive. But has it ever crossed your mind that these very strengths might be what others exploit most? You've tolerated manipulation, absorbed pain, and continuously overlooked betrayals, believing that kindness and empathy would eventually heal everything. But pause for a moment and consider this. What happens inside a heart that's been stretched too thin? A soul exhausted by always giving, always understanding, always forgiving. What happens when the gentle, empathetic person everyone depended on suddenly realizes they've given too much of themselves away? Carl Jung once observed that within each of us lies both shadow and light, gentleness and strength. He believed our true power emerges precisely when our capacity for kindness has been tested beyond its limit. Have you ever recognized that your empathy, your greatest gift, might be exactly what's holding you hostage in relationships you've long outgrown? Ask yourself honestly, are you truly helping others, or are you silently harming yourself each time you choose to stay quiet, to endure, to forgive yet another betrayal? What if the moment you finally decide, I've had enough, isn't an act of cruelty or selfishness, but a profound act of self-respect and personal empowerment? Because the truth is, there's nothing more powerful, nothing more dangerous to those who have mistreated you than your quiet realization of self-worth. Maybe today is the day you finally see clearly that your greatest strength isn't your endless capacity for forgiveness. It's your newfound courage to walk away. The real reason empathetic people choose detachment isn't because they're weak, disappointed, or bitter. It's precisely because they're deeply aware of their emotional and psychological boundaries. Empaths understand that their greatest strengths, kindness, deep understanding, and limitless compassion, are precisely the traits that can be most easily exploited. Their kindness is like a magnifying glass, allowing them to see clearly into the hearts and intentions of others, yet, ironically, keeping them at a perpetual distance from truly connecting. Think about it. You're sitting with friends or family, engaging in casual conversations, yet something inside tells you that none of this feels genuine. Instead of feeling seen and understood, you feel as though you're watching a performance unfold, one where everyone else seems perfectly comfortable playing their roles, while you're silently aware that all interactions are layered with hidden motives and unspoken truths. You smile, you nod, you engage, but deep down, a quiet voice whispers, "Is this really the place I belong?" Have you ever paused and asked yourself, is this detachment truly loneliness? Or is it a profound act of self-preservation? Perhaps the solitude you're choosing isn't abandonment, but protection. A way to safeguard your emotional clarity, intellectual integrity, and inner peace. Take Hannah's story as an example. Someone gentle, reliable, and kind. Always the first person others turn to for emotional support. Hannah spent years being everyone's emotional anchor, patiently absorbing their pain, their stories, their troubles. Until one day, standing exhausted in front of the mirror, she realized something powerful. It wasn't her own life's challenges that drained her. It was the endless emotional burdens she willingly carried for everyone else. For the first time, Hannah clearly saw that her boundless empathy had been quietly eroding her own inner peace, her emotional stability, her very essence. Do you see a reflection of yourself in Hannah's story? Have you ever felt trapped between your deep-rooted kindness and your growing awareness that something inside you is breaking apart, not because of your own burdens, but because you've consistently prioritized everyone else's emotional needs above your own? This forced social integration, this pressure to continually fit into environments that don't match your inner world, leads to a profound psychological isolation. Each time you push yourself to blend into a setting where you feel inherently disconnected, you're slowly eroding your sense of self-worth, draining your emotional reserves, and leaving yourself hollow and exhausted. Every effort to force integration feels like trying to wear clothes that simply don't fit. No matter how much you adjust, you're always uncomfortable, constantly aware that something isn't right. After each interaction, each social gathering, each forced smile, you return home feeling not just tired, but emotionally depleted, longing for solitude and authenticity. But here's an important question. Who might you become if you finally stopped forcing yourself into spaces and relationships that aren't meant for you? What would emerge from your heart and mind if you ceased trying to blend into places where your true self has never truly belonged? Consider deeply how many nights you've sacrificed restful sleep just to comfort someone who takes your compassion entirely for granted. How many conversations you've endured patiently, quietly absorbing the emotional turmoil of others while neglecting your own deep emotional fatigue. It's time to ask yourself truly, clearly, whether it's worth continuing to lose yourself in the process of saving everyone else. True compassion isn't about endless self-sacrifice. Genuine empathy means you can deeply care without dismantling your inner peace. You don't have to set yourself on fire just to keep others warm, especially those who have never appreciated the warmth you offer. The most profound act of kindness you might ever perform could simply be protecting your own heart first. What would your life look like if you began choosing your own emotional well-being over fitting into spaces that drain your spirit? Imagine, even briefly, the relief, the freedom, the authenticity that would surface if you stopped sacrificing your internal peace for external acceptance. Could you find the courage to finally say no when your heart is begging you to compromise your well-being once more? Would you dare to choose selective solitude, conscious detachment, not as an act of isolation, but as an empowering affirmation of your worth, clarity, and emotional autonomy? This shift from endless giving to mindful discernment, from passive empathy to conscious compassion, is transformative. Carl Jung described it as the path of individuation, a powerful personal journey toward becoming fully yourself. This isn't withdrawing from the world, it's intentionally and consciously choosing your place within it. Your empathy and kindness remain, but now they're guarded, selective, purposeful. They no longer scatter your emotional energy carelessly. Instead, you channel them into relationships and spaces that genuinely honor your depth and worth. You no longer attempt to rescue people who continuously reject healing, nor do you endlessly chase connections that drain your spirit. You step into a quiet strength born from deep self-awareness, emotional clarity, and newfound respect for your internal boundaries. Ask yourself now, are you ready to embrace this selective solitude, this differentiated compassion as a conscious, deliberate act of self-respect? Are you prepared to honor your own peace as much as you've always honored the emotional needs of others? Because perhaps the solitude you once feared isn't isolation at all. Maybe it's the very space where you finally meet your true self, reclaim your emotional sovereignty, and begin to truly thrive. The moment you consciously choose detachment isn't a sign of surrender or weakness. It's your soul reclaiming its rightful place at the center of your own life. Perhaps until now, you've mistaken your intentional solitude for isolation or failure, believing it meant you weren't strong enough or kind enough. But what if your detachment, your carefully chosen separation from environments and relationships that drain your spirit, is actually the first courageous step toward reconnecting with the most authentic and powerful version of yourself? Consider this carefully. What if the loneliness you've been feeling wasn't loneliness at all, but an internal calling, an invitation from deep within, urging you toward genuine self-understanding? Have you ever thought that maybe the discomfort you experience around certain people or places isn't a flaw to overcome, but your intuition clearly signaling you to step away? Imagine standing before a door you've always believed to be closed, impenetrable. You've spent years staring at it, longing for connection, acceptance, and true understanding, convinced that the key was somewhere outside of yourself, held by others, held by circumstances, held by approval you tirelessly chased. But what if the door was never locked to begin with? What if this entire time, you've been holding the key in your own hand, quietly waiting to recognize your own power? Your solitude is exactly this doorway, an opening toward authenticity. The path you've chosen isn't about rejecting others. It's about finally accepting yourself fully. When you withdraw from environments that don't align with your deepest values and emotional truths, you're not isolating yourself from genuine connections. You're creating space to nurture them. You're consciously stepping back from noise, superficiality, and emotional exhaustion toward clarity, authenticity, and emotional freedom. Imagine for a moment the person you could become if you no longer sacrificed your internal peace for external acceptance. Who would you be if you stopped pretending, stopped performing roles that drain your spirit, stopped trying desperately to fit into relationships and situations clearly not meant for you? Who emerges when the mask finally falls away? This moment of awakening is profound and deeply personal. It's the quiet realization that your solitude isn't abandonment, but liberation. A release from the heavy chains of constant emotional compromise. It's understanding, perhaps for the first time, that genuine strength is not how much pain you can silently endure, but how clearly and firmly you can honor your emotional boundaries. Your emotional exhaustion isn't proof of your weakness. It's undeniable evidence of your incredible capacity to give. But even the most compassionate hearts have limits. Recognizing your own limits doesn't diminish your compassion. It deepens your self-awareness. It shows that your empathy is sacred, worthy of respect, protection, and care. Think about this carefully. How often have you ignored your own needs to keep peace, only to realize later that the peace you preserved was never truly yours? How many times have you silenced your inner voice to accommodate the loud, relentless demands of others? And when you did so, did you feel connected and fulfilled, or quietly depleted, wondering why you keep abandoning yourself to meet the expectations of everyone but you? Perhaps the real strength isn't in tolerating endless emotional chaos, but in knowing exactly when to step back and reclaim your inner calm. Maybe your detachment isn't rejection. It's a profound act of self-respect and inner alignment. It's choosing consciously, courageously, not to betray your own heart again. Your true power doesn't emerge in the crowded room, surrounded by noise and distractions. It surfaces in the quiet spaces you've chosen deliberately, where clarity becomes undeniable and authenticity feels natural. Solitude becomes your sanctuary, not a place of escape, but of genuine self-discovery. Here you meet your true self without pretense, without apology, and without compromise. Consider deeply, who will you become if you never again trade your inner peace for external acceptance? Who emerges within you when you honor your solitude not as loneliness, but as a sacred meeting place where you finally reconnect with the person you've always been meant to become? The paradox is striking yet profoundly liberating. The more genuinely you embrace solitude, the more authentically you can eventually reconnect with others. Your detachment now becomes the foundation upon which future relationships are built. Relationships founded not on obligation, but on mutual respect and emotional reciprocity. Your journey inward, your deliberate choice of detachment, is not about isolation. It's about finally becoming whole. It's recognizing that true connection can only flourish once you've established firm, unshakable inner clarity. The solitude you feared isn't abandonment. It's preparation. It's not emptiness. It's presence. Presence of mind, presence of heart, and presence of authentic self-awareness. So ask yourself clearly, powerfully, now, if you stopped forcing yourself to blend into environments you know deep down are not for you, who could you become? What strength, clarity, and purpose might you finally unlock within your heart and mind? Your solitude is not a failure or a weakness. It is your most powerful opportunity for growth. It is the space where you finally stop sacrificing yourself for acceptance and start genuinely accepting yourself. It is the profound recognition that the only connection truly worth pursuing is the connection you build authentically, intentionally, and without compromise. That door to genuine connection has never been locked. You've always held the key. All you have to do now is recognize your own strength clearly enough, courageously enough, to finally step forward and open it. True freedom doesn't come when others stop manipulating you. It happens precisely at the moment you choose your inner peace above all else. Maybe you've spent years believing your kindness, patience, and endless empathy would eventually bring clarity, acceptance, and genuine connections. Yet, deep down, you've felt increasingly drained, quietly suffocated by emotional burdens that were never yours to carry. Ask yourself honestly, how many more nights will you lose sleep? Silently replaying conversations where you compromised your boundaries just to keep the peace? How much longer will you sacrifice your own emotional well-being for relationships that consistently leave you empty? Your patience has become your prison. Your empathy, the very strength you cherish, has slowly turned into your greatest weakness. And now you stand at a crucial turning point. You've spent so long trying to fit into roles and spaces that don't honor your true self, that somewhere along the line, you lost sight of who you genuinely are. But freedom is within your reach right now. It begins not when someone else changes or apologizes, but the instant you decide you're done, exchanging your inner calm for external validation. Picture this. You've been holding on to a key your entire life, quietly carrying it in your pocket, waiting for others to grant you permission to use it. But here's the truth. The door to genuine peace, genuine clarity, and authentic self-worth was never locked. It has always been wide open, patiently waiting for you to walk through. You alone hold the power to step forward into a life defined by your own emotional integrity and strength. What might your life become if today, instead of waiting for others to stop hurting or disappointing you, you simply choose to stop allowing it? Who would you be if you decided right now, clearly and firmly, that your inner peace and emotional health were no longer negotiable? Imagine waking up tomorrow knowing that you will no longer compromise who you truly are just to maintain shallow connections or temporary harmony. It's not selfish to protect your own peace. It's necessary. True compassion isn't measured by how much emotional weight you can carry for others. It's knowing exactly when to put down burdens that don't belong to you. You've already carried enough, given enough, sacrificed enough. It's time to reclaim yourself, your strength, your emotional clarity. You deserve relationships that uplift rather than drain you, conversations that energize instead of exhaust, and spaces where your emotional presence is truly respected and reciprocated. The power to choose all of this is yours. It always has been. If you're finally ready to take back your peace, write down clearly and intentionally this simple but powerful declaration: I choose my own peace. The moment you write these words, you are no longer just surviving. You're consciously beginning the journey back to yourself. Your choice today will echo through every aspect of your life. This isn't merely about detachment or isolation. It's about finally respecting yourself enough to only accept connections that nourish your soul. Your real freedom starts right here, right now, with your decision to prioritize your emotional well-being above everything else.